All right. So what is a global city? According to the book, a global city, also called a power city, world city, alpha city, or world center, is a city which is primary node in the global economic network. The concept comes from geography and urban studies, and the idea that globalization is created and furthered in strategic geographic locales according to a hierarchy of importance to the operation of the global system of finance and trade. So from the definition itself, it talks about economy. Okay, so just a review. As we all know, globalization is everywhere. No, just by using Google, just by communicating with our family members outside the Philippines, we can really say that it manifests globalization already, right? By using different products coming from abroad, the activities of trading, exporting of products, trading, money trading, or trading of stocks, foreign exchange. These are actually implications or manifestations that indeed globalization is present, ultimately present in the Philippines. Okay? So the particularity of every global city is based on diversification of the global economy itself. Diba? As I told you, globalization, it has a few misconceptions because it doesn't mean that we're living under a globalization. Every country is open already to trade with another country because, again, there's still restrictions, there's still laws or policies which we are going to follow when we hear of financing or trading. Again, policies should define, no, the measures and restrictions for the different cities involved. So it doesn't mean that we are in globalization. You can already go to China, you can already go to Amsterdam without any papers or documents that they require. No, so even if there's a globalization, the openness there requires certain requirements that you need to comply. In fact, when we travel from one country to another, you really have your passport. No, that's a minimum requirement. Otherwise, that country or the foreign country will arrest you. No, so we all know about the misconceptions of globalization. Chicago, Sao Paulo, Brazil, and Shanghai have historically specialized in industrial production and consequently on related industries such as law, finance, insurance, and economic forecasting. Okay, so actually in New York, you can, if you're a Filipino, but if you intend to take the New York bar, then you can practice law, no, in New York. Okay, so that's actually one of the developments also. Another is finance. Okay, when we talk about, diba, there are classifications of banking, no, universal banks, we have local banks, rural banks. So what's an example of a universal bank? We have perhaps a China bank, and we also have Maybank, no. So Maybank is actually from I think it's from Malaysia, but it's here in the Philippines, right? So take note that it doesn't mean that, again, since we're talking here about globalization na wala ng restrictions. So we have to assure that whenever there is a foreign company, foreign corporation entering the Philippines, no, it is a requirement under the Philippine laws that majority of the stocks or capital of that corporation should be owned by Filipinos. Okay, otherwise we will be dominated by foreigners or aliens, no? So hindi rin yan pwede. Dapat majority ng ownership ng kumpanya na yan or korporasyon na iyan na nandito sa Philippines, it should be majority of which must be owned by Filipinos, including insurance companies, no? In fact, there is a certain requirement para makapag-open ka ng insurance company dito, no? And you expect na it's very expensive, okay? Kasi sa insurance, uh, okay, speaking of foreign corporations, kung magpunta sila dito, mag-invest sila dito sa Philippines class, they should actually present a bond or a security. No? What is that bond? Parang mag-iwan sila ng pera sa government natin na okay, security iyon para kung meron silang mga responsibilities at obligations dito, hindi sila basta-basta lang makaalis sa Philippines. That's why the government has to secure that, because that foreign corporation in the Philippines will be transacting with Filipinos, no? And the government has to protect the Filipino who is, of course, engaging in business transactions with that particular foreign corporation. So, ganyan ang parang conceptualization dyan, no? Same with insurance companies, no? Kahit they are originally from US or from Canada, they can still invite clients from the Philippines. Okay. So what are the essential traits of a global city? So in this enumeration, we can say that that state or that particular locality is considered as a global city. That local government unit is considered to be as a global city. Okay, so what's the first? There is an apparent presence of a variety of international financial services, notably in finance, insurance, real estate, banking, accountancy, and marketing. Sir, meron man din yan sa Philippines, sir. No, naama po tayo insurance and real estate as well as banking. So, that's true. No, definitely. We all have this in the Philippines, particularly in Luzon, no, in Manila. It's the capital of the Philippines, but it is not as high as the other global cities, no, who are in the top 10, no. For example, New York, Amsterdam, Paris, for example, no. We cannot beat these cities, okay? These are very progressive cities. While it is true that we have all these institutions, but again, no, it is not high as the other global cities. So financial institutions are indispensable for global cities in as much as trade, commerce, and finance is almost second nature to these cities. We have to bear in mind that these cities are important hubs of global trade and economy, and this explains the reason why banking and financial providers are all the more important to sustain the demand for exchange and financial mobility. So as you can see, as we can observe, really, most of the agricultural countries, these are the places which has a slow progress, no? For example, in the Philippines, Indonesia, and major countries in Africa, for example, no? So we can really say that those agricultural countries suffer from, common social issues, common social problems, no? Because they only provide raw materials. But these global cities can provide you with what? No? The things that every human being would really need, no? In terms of jobs, in terms of financing, no? The moment you deposit your money to a certain bank, no? A certain financial institution, there's actually a movement there, no? So there's actually a development there because the banking institution can actually get out from that deposit coming from a client, no? So again, if we deposit cash to a let's say China Bank, no, it's actually not a form of deposit, but it's in the form of a loan agreement, no? Para bang you are lending money to the bank. Okay, so it's a uh, kasi pag ang usual impression natin pag mag-deposit tayo ng cash is that it's a form of deposit, but it's not really a deposit, it's a loan, meaning you are lending money to them. So basically, banks cannot survive without people, without clients. Okay, no matter how small would be your cash, no, deposited. So it's really a big help for particular financial institution. But yun na nga, if you only provide raw materials, you'll be paid for that raw materials, and who will process that? Those countries who has machineries, okay, to process these raw materials. Okay, headquarters of several multinational corporations. So most of the global cities, nandoon din yung mga presence ng bangko, no? Mga satua kay mga cooperative raman, mga tagom cooperative. But sa kanila, most of the universal banks are present in these cities. Okay? Another is existence of financial headquarters, yun na, a stock exchange and major financial institutions. What's the best investment at this time of pandemic, no? Gamay lang, no? Because some of the countries, I think, suspended their infrastructure projects. So, but in these cities, again, business continues, no? It never ceases, okay? Although there's a slow pace of movement somehow because of quarantine restrictions. But again, in these cities, talagang very major ang presence ng different financial institutions. Fourth, domination of the trade and economy of a large surrounding area. Of course, global cities are dominant business and commercial hubs where capital and investment flow operates at a massive scale. No? Just as ancient cities have become important economic centers of antiquity, global cities are necessary trading and commercial hubs of the information age. With high levels of information exchange, these cities are often located in countries with some of the most stable governments and economies in their regions, and are typically cultural centers in countries with younger and more liberal populations. This is very capitalism, no? Because when we say capitalism, it connotes that the government has less intervention to the businesses of the people, in contrast with communism, no? But it doesn't mean na communism, there's already no presence of democracy, no? Because democracy and communism are two different things, okay? Communism is an economic system, all right? So they're two different things. All right. Considerable sixth trait, considerable decision-making power on a daily basis, and it at a global level. According to the book, global cities possess the capacity to create an immediate impact with its decisions, actions, and policy direction. So the policies are well organized, delineated. So for example, in our case, diba, we have a confusion, or maybe we are curious as to who is really an ideal leader. Should the leader be a lawyer? Should the leader be an economist? No, because we have tried an economist president, a lawyer, of course. Okay, so again, their decision making would really affect as to how are we going to run the economy. No, that's why if you are not good at economy, of course, they have their financial advisors to help them with respect to finance. Seventh is center of new ideas and innovation in business, economics, culture, and politics. Of course, these are very evident in global cities like New York, no? focal point of media and communications for global networks. The presence of media is actually form part of money. Have you heard of the issue of Rappler? You know, the issue of Rappler is that there's really no ownership from foreign entities. No, there's no issue about it, but it seems like that's the issue. But verily, that's not the main cause of the controversy. No, the main cause of controversy there is the issuance of Philippine depositary receipt. So there's parang it would put cloud ba or it would put doubt na baka may involvement ang foreigners dito kasi nga media in the Philippines should be 100% owned, meaning bawal mag-intervene ang foreign entities. So this is one of the industries in the Philippines which prohibits foreign ownership. Okay? Yung iba, pwede naman foreign ownership, although limited lang, let's say 60-40. But in the case of media, it should be 100% Filipino owned. Okay? Where are we? Dominance of the national region with great international significance. That's too obvious, no? High percentage of residents employed in the services sector and information sector. Of course, the more that there are industries present, the more that there are financial institutions present, that would mean there are more investment. And when we say there are more investment, there are more jobs to offer. Okay, the government or the city can offer jobs to people. And if there are jobs, the people can provide for the basic necessities and the needs of their family. And when they can afford education and when they can afford the basic necessities of their children, of course, their children will be future professionals. You know? And when they become professionals, they can already contribute to the economy. So it's a cycle actually. Okay. Eleventh, high quality educational institutions, including renowned universities, international student attendance, and research facilities. 12th is multifunctional infrastructure, offering some of the best legal, medical, and entertainment facilities in the world. 13 is high diversity in language, culture, religion, and ideologies. So usually, kung if you kung mag-watch kayo ng news, 'di ba? So itong mga global cities na consider natin like London, New York, Singapore. So it's full of diverse language and culture because other citizens from other country would want to visit these places, no? And they would want to invest in these places because the business there is very lucrative. Okay, so this is very timely. Under pressure, new challenges for global cities. First is the cost of proximity. First, COVID-19 has altered the actual and perceived risk of precisely the kind of physical proximity and demographic concentration that define cities. At the same time as virtual interaction and remote working models become more viable, the balance of costs and benefits associated with urban life for residents and companies alike has shifted. This is primarily because of the restrictions imposed, no, all over the world. Next is the fiscal breaking points. The economic dislocation wrought by the crisis has also placed tremendous budgetary pressure on many cities, adding to debt. So we all know different countries has to lend money from financial institutions basically to provide the needs of their people, no? Because a lot of companies have suspended their operation. So when they suspended their operation, the people would lose their jobs. Okay, so the government has to intervene in that case. Global fragmentation with trends toward localization and economic nationalism already gaining momentum before the virus began its deadly assault, the crisis has brought on a whole new set of barriers to global flows of commerce, investment, people, ideas, data, and technology. The premiums on self-sufficiency and strategic autonomy are now at an all-time high, as we saw when the need for medical equipment and resources soared in the face of broken supply chains and severe shortages. As international cooperation erodes, several of the central means by which global cities create value for their citizens, communities, and companies are also crumbling. So, parang a, a it's a rule of survival, no? Na of course we have to prioritize our needs as a city or as a country, no? Urban divide. Cities are also facing a set of longer-term challenges made more complex by the pandemic. So it also describes inequality in terms of the capability to provide for the needs of your people. Also, it also describes or it would implicate different situations. Why? Because some areas, no, in some cities, the COVID cases, but in some cities, yeah, it's not that high. So lahi-lahi mo og circumstances. Okay? The persistent issue of social and economic inequality, now exacerbated by levels of unemployment not seen in many parts of the world for some 70 years. With automation increasingly rearing its head, cities, traditionally centers of economic opportunity, will also have to wrestle with its impact on employment, education, and training programs. So in that case, there's a division with respect to the cities. Now, the point there is there's a lack of progress, for this year because of the restrictions. Finally, and for many cities, the most pressing topic is the ever-growing peril of climate change. Pollution, water scarcity, and exposure to increasingly frequent extreme weather events will demand that cities find new ways to become secure. In fact, I don't know if you are familiar with the Paris Agreement. No? Philippines is a signatory to that agreement. So that's one way of parang promoting to somehow prevent or lessen the emission of greenhouse gases, no? Brought by different kanang mga industries. Pero we can't relate because we do not have machineries. Okay. All right. So that ends my discussion, the importance